Breaking news. The U.S. Navy just fired on and seized an Iranian cargo ship. Iran has pulled out of peace talks. The ceasefire expires in days. And oil prices just jumped 7%. Here's exactly what happened and what it means. Sunday, April 19th, 2026. The USS Spruance, a United States Navy-guided missile destroyer, intercepted an Iranian-flagged cargo ship called the Touska in the Gulf of Oman. The ship had been warned repeatedly over a 6-hour period to stop and comply with the American blockade. It did not. So the U.S. Navy fired directly into its engine room, disabled it, and U.S. Marines boarded the vessel and took full custody. Trump announced it himself on social media within hours. He wrote that Marines have custody of the ship and are seeing what is on board. This was the first time the United States had physically attacked and seized a merchant vessel since the blockade began on April 13th, and the consequences were immediate. Iran called it maritime piracy. Iran's military said the United States had violated the ceasefire, destroyed the ship's navigation equipment, and deployed what it called terrorist Marines onto the deck of a commercial vessel. Iran's National Security Council responded by pulling out of the second round of peace talks that were scheduled for Monday in Islamabad. The same talks that Vice President J.D. Vance, Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner were already flying to Pakistan to attend. Iran's chief negotiator Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf said it plainly on state television. He said it is impossible for others to pass through the Strait of Hormuz while Iran cannot. And on Sunday, for the first time in days, not a single tanker passed through the strait at all, according to ship tracking data. 0. Iran closed it again. Oil prices jumped 7% in a single day. Brent crude climbed to nearly $97 per barrel. U.S. gas prices hit a national average of $4.05 per gallon on Sunday. The Energy Secretary told CNN that prices may not return below $3 a gallon until next year, and more than 20,000 seafarers remain stranded on hundreds of ships sitting at both ends of the strait, waiting for clearance that is not coming. Now here's my take on what this actually means. The seizure of the Touska was legally defensible on narrow grounds. The ship was under U.S. Treasury sanctions before this conflict even began, meaning it had a prior history of what the U.S. considers illegal activity. Trump made that point specifically, and U.S. Central Command gave 6 hours of warnings before firing. That is not a snap decision. But the timing could not have been worse diplomatically. Iran had been signaling, carefully and conditionally, that it was willing to show up to a second round of talks. Pakistan had tightened security in Islamabad. U.S. advance teams were already on the ground. The table was set, and then the United States Navy blew a hole in an Iranian ship 8 hours before those talks were supposed to begin. Whether that was deliberate or a coincidence of operational timing, the effect was the same. Iran had the perfect justification to walk away. And it took it. The deeper problem here is that both sides are trying to do two completely contradictory things at the same time. The United States is simultaneously trying to negotiate a peace deal and enforce a maximum pressure blockade. Iran is simultaneously trying to negotiate a peace deal and maintain control over the strait as its primary leverage. These two things cannot coexist. You cannot pressure someone into a deal while also expecting them to come to the table in good faith. And Iran cannot maintain the strait as a bargaining chip while also expecting the United States to lift the blockade as a precondition for talks. Both sides are essentially saying, you move first, and neither is moving. The ceasefire expires on Wednesday, April 22nd. As of today, there is no second round of talks confirmed. Iran is threatening retaliation, the strait is closed again, oil is climbing, and the fragile 2-week window that Pakistan worked so hard to open is now in serious danger of slamming shut entirely. Here's what I think happens next. One of three things. Either Iran returns to the table in the next 48 hours under back-channel pressure from Pakistan, which is still working the phones, and the talks happen with the ship seizure treated as a separate issue. Or the ceasefire expires Wednesday without renewal, and the U.S. resumes bombing Iran while simultaneously trying to hold the blockade. A combination that almost certainly pushes oil above $110 per barrel and pulls China and Russia more openly into Iran's corner. Or, and this is the scenario nobody is saying out loud, but everyone is thinking, Iran retaliates against the ship seizure with a strike on an American vessel. The ceasefire collapses entirely, and we are back to full-scale war in the world's most critical energy corridor, with no diplomatic framework left to stop it. Pakistan is the only actor right now with the relationships and the credibility to prevent the worst outcome. Islamabad has already said it is still working to bring both sides back. Iran has not formally declared the talks dead, only that it is not sending a delegation today. That is a door left slightly open. Whether anyone walks through it in the next 72 hours will determine whether this crisis takes a step back from the edge, or takes the step that finally pushes it over. The ship has been seized. The talks are in doubt. The ceasefire expires Wednesday. The world is watching Islamabad again.